Okay, guys, we're live, and so I'm just going to do a little review of or commentary on James White and Jason Wallace. Apparently, they know the true history of Orthodoxy, apparently, and Jason Wallace, he's made a video making claims about Orthodoxy, like not having true history and how it's all fake and blah, blah, blah. And of course, Protestantism is the best, according to Jason Wallace. And James White kind of he invited Jason Wallace to have a conversation with him because James White, found an ally in this battle against the Orthodox Church. And so let's listen to these guys talk.
But I've got lots of people keep posting over and over debate Jay Dyer.
Yeah,
I have no desire to debate Jay Dyer. I would love to see you do it. You're the debater, not me. I prefer making videos. Thank you.
But, yes. That don't include your face, evidently.
Yes, I did live TV for over 7.5 years, and I'm a painful introvert.
Okay, do you guys hear me now? Okay, so apparently Jason Wallace claims that he's not the debater, James White is the debater, but there's multiple different videos of Jason Wallace debating other Protestants on certain issues. So I don't know why Jason Wallace claims that he's not a debater. And of course he adds that he likes to make videos behind the camera, and of course, I don't know, it sounds a little bit cowardly to me, but so I just wanted to kind of throw that in there. So
by nature, and so it was really good to get out from in front of a camera.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll let that one slide. Yeah. Well, whenever everybody brings up Jay Dyer, I'm sort of like, well, which religion is he a part of today? Because he's been everywhere, and that may be something that will happen in the future. But I'll just be honest with you. I sort of doubt that most Orthodox in Ukraine would really be able to figure out where in the world the guy is coming from. He's a good example, in my opinion, of what I was talking about earlier, and that is once you get over here in the West, Orthodoxy in its native lands, in its best forms. So not just the nominal form, which is predominant, but in its best forms in the native lands, doesn't use forensic argumentation. It doesn't think in those categories. And that makes it really, 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 really hard for us to interface with those types of folks. That's not really what people are converting to here in the U.S. I have to wonder, honestly, if part of the popularity right now of the Orthodox movement isn't a result of the fact that everybody recognizes that Francis does not believe what his predecessors believed. Everybody can tell that, if you're longing for the smells and bells and you're longing for the ancient church standing in the midst of time stuff, Francis is sort of a clinker contradiction to that. I mean, you can just tell he's modern. He's different from what has been in the past. And I really wonder how much that has to do with people who are looking for something different than. Well, you saw the video, didn't you, of Sunday's sermon? Sunday's service at Saddleback. Did you see it?
No, I hadn't seen that yet.
You have that Francis forensic argumentation. It doesn't think in those categories. And that makes it really, 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 really hard for us to
So I guess James White is trying to say that apparently the Orthodox people in predominantly Orthodox countries, Ukraine, Russia, Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, what else? Belarus, right? So apparently, I guess the Orthodox people there they don't have like these intellectual arguments, and so apparently Jay Dyer, because when you watch his videos, he gets very philosophical. He dissects like information, like he dissects a lot of topics, and like he'll like do these deep dives. And so apparently, I guess James White is trying to make the claim that Eastern Orthodox don't do this. Well, that's totally not true, because unlike James White, I could speak, Slavic languages, right? I understand Russian, Ukrainian, and let me tell you something. They have Orthodox television shows. They have Orthodox bloggers. They have Orthodox people who do their own research, right? And they have priests who do their own intellectual, philosophical research. And so they do basically similar things that Jay Dyer does. Of course, Jay Dyer, like he's a little more entertaining. So, but my point is that a lot of Eastern Orthodox do pretty much similar things that Jay Dyer does on YouTube. So I don't know why James White is making this claim that there's like no forensic research in Eastern Orthodox countries, in the native countries, as he says, right? So I don't know why he's making that claim. It's totally not true. It's just a lie. But whatever.
Interface with those types of folks. That's not really what people are converting to here in the U.S.
So he's trying to say that like people are not converting to this in the U.S. Like, what are we converting to? It's the same Orthodox theology. It doesn't matter whether you're in Bulgaria or in the United States, right? You're part of the Orthodox Church. If you're in America and you convert to the Orthodox Church, it doesn't matter what jurisdiction, Serbian, OCA, Greek, Russian, you're still in the same Orthodox Church. So you're converting to the same exact thing, regardless of which country you're in.
I have to wonder, honestly, if part of the popularity right now of the Orthodox movement isn't a result of the fact that everybody recognizes.
I believe that James White, he's a little butthurt because people have been calling him out. Like whenever he would talk about the Orthodox, like the comment sections would just hit his channel, and people would say, "Hey, James White, you've led me to Orthodoxy. I'm an Orthodox Christian now because of you." And you have so many people saying, "Yeah, like I'm no longer a Calvinist because of you, James White. Like I moved on to the Orthodox Church." And you have so many comments. There's a funny video out there where like James White, he's dissing Orthodoxy, and then all of a sudden in the comment section you have like comment after comment saying, "Oh yeah, you know what, James White, you're leading people to the Orthodox Church. You're leading people away from Calvinism and into Orthodoxy." And so honestly, like I think that's one of the reasons why James White invited Jason Wallace to back him up in this conversation, is because Jason Wallace made a dumb video a couple of weeks ago, and it was debunked by I forgot the name of the priest, Father Whiteford, I think that's his name, Father John Whiteford. I could be wrong, but anyways, so that video was already being debunked, and so and because Jason Wallace made this dumb, controversial video, James White decided to bring in this ally to this conversation, and like James White, it seems like he's taking this whole thing personally, that people are not taking him seriously. And I think he saw that video. I'm pretty sure he saw the video where people were commenting, thanking him for leading them to Orthodoxy, sarcastically. But look at this section right here. There is no comment section, and I kind of noticed that like in his Alpha and Omega clips, there's usually no comments, and I think the Dividing Line, his other YouTube channel, there's a comment section, but I think that's like another reason why he's not using the Dividing Line. He's using Alpha and Omega because this channel, the Alpha and Omega channel, does not have comment sections for any videos. The Dividing Line does have comments, people commenting, but here Alpha and Omega, the comments are always turned off. And so I believe that James White prepared himself. He brought on board an ally, Jason Wallace, and he's using the channel that has like no comment section. So therefore, no one in the comments can actually respond to him. But that's just my theory. But like, I would not be surprised if that's the reason.
That Francis does not believe what his predecessors believed. He's everybody can tell that, you know, if you're longing for the smells and bells, and you're longing for the ancient church standing in the midst of time stuff, Francis is sort of a clinker contradiction to that. I mean, you can just tell he's modern. He's different from what has been in the past. And I really wonder how much that has to do with people who are looking for something different than... well, you saw the video, didn't you?
Well, that's because Pope Francis, he's modern, but the Orthodox Church is unchanged. It did not change anything theologically. It just remained the same since like the 9th century or the 7th century. So, but the Roman Catholics had Vatican II, and all of a sudden things started to get worse for them. But of course, they had other councils where things got worse for them. But Vatican II just kind of, you know, like just made it worse. So, yeah. So, but like, I don't know why he's comparing Pope Francis to Orthodoxy here. Okay, Pope Francis is modern, okay, and so like we could see that he has nothing to do with the ancient church. We could see this. We could see that because of Vatican II. Like, there's like really, like, is there really a connection with Roman Catholicism today and the ancient church? And so, so like, we Orthodox, we understand this because the Orthodox Church like basically is basically stuck with we're basically stuck with the ancient church. We did not go anywhere. Like, we were stuck in the 9th century. So like, we were basically staying loyal to the ancient church.
Of Sunday's sermon, Sunday's service at Saddleback. Did you see it?
No, I hadn't seen that yet.
You haven't seen that yet? Are you living? Are you living in a cave? What? I mean, come on.
I'm living in the desert. I'm living in Utah.
Well, I know, but you still have the internet there. I mean, it was. They're doing. I guess this is popular in evangelicals. I've never been in a church that's ever done this. But they're doing Life in the Movies, Movie Sunday, something. I don't know what you call it, but where you do something based on some popular movie. And they're doing Toy Story 4. And this is, of course, Rick Warren's old...
Of course, James White does not want to admit that this is basically what Reformed theology and Protestantism has led to, is basically churches now promoting I don't know, promoting Toy Story now. So this is what it is. You know, like, people go into all these evangelical churches and they just don't see any reverence. They don't see like anything that has to do with the Bible, with the faith. You know, it's just more like this community convention center. Hey guys, let's all have a good time. You know, let's sing some songs about Jesus, hear a motivational person speak, and then go home. And so James White, like, he's criticizing this, but he's not realizing that this is what sola scriptura has led to.
Hans, and the new pastor and his wife, and I saw somebody saying, isn't she Warren's daughter? That's what somebody said. So, I mean, now we're passing things down through the woman's line in the church. That's great. Anyway, the new pastor and his wife come out dressed as Toy Story characters. I think he was Woody, and she was Little Bo Peep.
The consequences of sola scriptura.
And so that's what I'm seeing is these people coming out and greeting everybody dressed as Woody and Little Bo Peep. And so I get why people look at that and go, you know, there might need to be something a little bit more reverent. You know, I mean, maybe worship isn't all about making ourselves feel good. You know, so they start.
Well, yes, you know, people are getting tired of, you know, this, like, people who are genuinely, you know, trying to seek God, trying to have faith. You know, like, they walk into these churches and they don't see any reverence. And that's because of sola scriptura. That's what it leads to. People eventually, they just read the Bible for themselves, and they just kind of interpret the Bible how they want to. And that's why you have so many Protestant churches, like just splitting up. For example, like some Protestant churches, they'll break up with each other simply because, like some of the church members did not agree on the carpet, what color carpet they should have in church, like ridiculous stuff like this. And so James White, he's like this Reformed Baptist. So they're basically low church Protestants who are LARPing as high church Protestants. So Reformed Baptists, they're not like your like your cringe fundamental Baptists. Reformed Baptists, they have some respect for the early church fathers. They have some respect for like some early church writings, and they'll of course take them out of context, and they'll cherry pick certain quotes here and there to prove Calvinism and to prove whatever theological ideas they align with, and that's it. But and this what James White is referring to. Like he's referring to people just walking into these evangelical churches and not seeing any reverence. But of course, I've been to James White's church. They're in a different location right now. But originally, when I first went to his church, it was in Tempe. They were renting from another church, and I was in their service. And to be honest, like when I was there, I was already starting to kind of feel like, and I was Protestant at the time too. But like I just thought, I should find them. Like maybe this will be my home church. And I went in there and like, I was thinking, okay, cool. I kind of like this balance where, you have some conservative theology and then at the same time you do have some nice, worship music. But already, like I did not feel that spirituality anymore. Like it just wasn't there. Like I tried to kind of enjoy it, but I just couldn't for some reason. I don't know why. Like basically, like I got burnt out on a lot of this stuff, like on a lot of this praise and worship stuff. It just started to like, just burn out on me, right? And then of course Jeff Durbin, who was the pastor at the time, he was in the hospital, so James White was substituting for him. And after the sermon, I actually got to meet James White in person, and because I was a cringe Protestant at the time, I thanked him. Oh yeah, Dr. White, you cured me of my KJV onlyism, and he liked hearing that, of course, and of course he did tell me, hey, you going to church anywhere, because you should find a home church for yourself. And I was thinking, yeah, you're right, sir, yeah. But then for some reason I just never came back to them, and like I just didn't have the time. Like to be honest, like there was this internal disinterest, despite the fact that I like a lot of the stuff that his protege Jeff Durbin talks about when it comes to abortion and certain other things. For some reason, I just had no interest. And so James White here, he's talking about reverence and like how basically like people are tired of this irreverence in these evangelical churches. But then look at how James White is dressed right now. Look like some tie-dye shirt and like a cross on his neck. Okay, wow. What happened to like this high church LARPing that you used to kind of promote, right? So like he's like dressed no differently than like these Saddleback church that he's trying to criticize. Like he's dressed like no differently than any of them. Like so like he's not dressed like a man of authority who has knowledge. He's just dressed like a typical blogger, like a typical YouTuber, like kind of like me. But yes. Let's just keep watching some more.
They start looking around for something, and these churches offer themselves up. But one of the things you dove into that I found interesting, and I wanted to see if I can accept. I just realized, Rich, can you do my screen? I totally spaced doing this. You can see it. All right, let me make sure that you're getting the sound. Should be here, and I'm not. I hope that Jason can hear this. But this is 16 minutes and 50 seconds into. Your sermons aren't 2 hours and 16 minutes long, are they, Jason?
Not hardly.
Not hard. You've never. What's the longest you've ever gone?
I might have gone 50 minutes one time, but
really,
I was
wow. Wow. I used to be good at limiting myself in that way, and then once I got to Apologia, Sunday's sermon from Jeff was 1:06, and that's pretty much spot on for him. And I now struggle to stay under an hour myself. It's hard, but anyway. So this is 16 minutes in. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it. If not, I'll fill you in. But let's see if this is gonna work for us. It's okay. It's sort of quiet here at the beginning.
8th century monk John of Damascus insisted icons weren't simply permissible, but absolutely necessary to the Christian faith. He said those who refused to venerate them weren't warring against images, but against Christ and his saints. He was declared a heretic by the Council of Hieria in the year 754, but 33 years later the Second Council of Nicaea declared him a saint.
This link between icon and gospel is greatly emphasized by St. John of Damascus, and his 3 homilies on the holy icons are still the best patristic work for anyone to read who wishes to enter into the meaning of the icon.
John's 3 treatises on divine images became the basis for Second Nicaea's demand for the veneration of icons. He pointed out that Abraham had bowed or offered proskynesis to the people of the land, and Joseph's brothers had offered him proskynesis. John argued this was a fundamentally different reverence from latreia, which is the worship of God alone. If Joseph's brothers bowed to him, surely we should also bow to icons. If Christians were commanded to greet the saints with a holy kiss, surely we should also kiss the images of those saints who are now in heaven. The second...
So, okay, now you continue on and talk about, obviously the iconoclastic controversy in church history is very important, but most people in the West really struggle to understand the centrality of icons in Eastern Orthodoxy.
What does he mean by that? Like, if you're Orthodox in the West, you know why you venerate icons. You know you're not worshiping the icons. So I'm trying to figure out what's he trying to say by this.
What did you learn? We're sort of running out of time, but what did you learn in digging into this stuff? Were you surprised at just how central iconography is to not just Orthodox practice, but Orthodox theology?
Yeah, I mean, it's the very heart of the religion. I mean, they don't have the formal systematics that you have in the West. And, one of the things people will sometimes criticize them in terms of throwing a few quotes at them from church fathers, but they have over 130 citations in John of Damascus, and they've got the Second Nicene Council saying that this is the historic faith of the church and anathema to anyone who says otherwise.
That were taking place between younger Protestant apologists, Roman Catholics, and Eastern Orthodox on this very issue and on the ahistorical nature of the claims of Second Nicene Council, how dependent they were upon forgeries, stuff that, then again, without acoustics in the world, and the music is amazing. And then what you're seeing, though, is as far as history is concerned, but you're dealing a lot with forgeries and things like that.
Forgeries. So, I'm not this big scholar like James White is, right? But James White, you could at least provide some kind of evidence for the forgeries, right? If you know some forgeries exist, you present them to us, right? You have those books right behind you. Because when you watch Jay Dyer, like you start, telling him, ask him to quote something, he'll be like, oh yeah, hold on, I got this book right here. He goes, like, he just pulls out a book. So page 37 right here, it says, like, in this year this happened, whatever, right? So like Jay Dyer could do this, right? James White, he has a bunch of books in the background. He cannot pull out a book and just kind of point out to what forgeries, he's talking about. Like, he's not even doing this. It's kind of really interesting that this man, who's supposed to be a scholar, is not trying to show us any evidence of forgeries.
But still, I visited an Orthodox church in Kiev the last time I was.
It's not Kiev, it's Kiev. Say it properly.
I was there, and during a service, and you've got to give them one thing: the music is amazing. It truly is. They build those churches to have just the most astonishing acoustics in the world, and the music is amazing. And then what you're seeing, though, as far as the experience is, this is the place of energia. This is the place where divine energy is available. And the icons are intimately connected with that. As far as it becomes so central to the experience. We think about having a biblical text open to us, an application made to us. On Sunday, Jeff preached from Proverbs 11:1 and equal measures, equal weights, and made application all across life to where we need to. He pointed out that in many of my debates with Muslims, I've always said we need to have equal measures. We can't take one standard and apply it to the New Testament, a different standard and apply it to the Quran. All sorts of application of that. That's not the kind of thing you're getting in an Orthodox service at all. That is so, from their perspective, pedantic. You've got mystery, you've got the energies, you've got.
So basically, what he's saying is that the Orthodox Church doesn't have Sunday sermons. We have Sunday sermons, literally. It's not just singing and mystery, right? And it's also sermons. We have sermons every Sunday. And a lot of the sermons apply to our everyday lives. So I don't know why James White is saying we don't have this.
Totally different.
Especially if he's been inside of an Orthodox church in Kiev. So was this on a Sunday? And was this on a holiday? Like, what was this? So I'm trying to figure this out. And I bet you there was a sermon preached there, and he just probably just it just went over his head or something. And John MacArthur does the same thing. He says he's been to Moscow and he's been inside of a Orthodox church, and there was no sermon. There was only a liturgy and people singing and kissing icons. I'm thinking, there's no way you'd not hear a sermon. There's no way. Total lie.
Context that a lot of people just would struggle to even see what the connection between the two could possibly be. And the centrality of the icons for us is just one of those things we have to push back on and go, where did this start? And when you dig into it, it is not apostolic by any stretch of the imagination. And to claim that it is to fundamentally falsify any.
One of the early icons was from the Apostle Luke. Okay. And again, I'm not a scholar. I can't point this out right now. I don't have a bunch of books like Jay Dyer. I got a few books in the corner, but James White, he has a bunch of books in the background. Point this out to us, right? Prove to us that icons are not apostolic. But then we have the icon of Saint Luke, and then not the actual icon, but Saint Luke, basically the first iconographer. So basically, we have this tradition. This tradition exists, and oral tradition predates the Bible. By the way, it predates the New Testament. And so James White, he is denying that tradition exists. James White is trying to make the claim that basically, well, he's not making that claim, but like because he obviously does not believe that Christians had access to the New Testament in 50 AD, 100 AD, 200 AD. He acknowledges that, but then like he has to kind of use that type of argument that Christians apparently had all this knowledge, you know, before 300 AD. Because like when it comes to stuff like tradition, all of a sudden like that stuff gets thrown out the window. Like tradition gets thrown out the window for some reason. And I don't know if you guys could hear that. I think my microphone or my headphones are kind of acting weird at the moment. There's some kind of interference. But anyways, yeah, James White just throws tradition out the window whenever it suits him. And so in this argument, he's saying that icons are not apostolic, but he's not presenting us with any evidence. He has those books behind him. He could point out to one of the books and claim, right here it says this and that. He's not doing that. He's not presenting any evidence as to why the icons are apostolic. But we have like the tradition from the church that's been passed down. Basically, we have the existence of the Jerusalem church. We have the existence of the church in Thessaloniki. We have the existence of the ancient churches to this very day that still exist. That predates Nicaea. That predates 300 AD. Right? We have all these churches that preserved a lot of relics from the saints, and so James White simply just chooses not to believe in tradition. And that's why he says, "Oh, it's not apostolic," but show to us where, because we could look at tradition. Because in some parts, James White will have to appeal to tradition in order to prove some kind of argument to a Muslim or to some kind of other some low church Protestant who disagrees with him on some issues. He'll sometimes have to do that and show how smart he is and how he respects the church fathers. But when it comes to icons specifically, for some reason it's okay to just throw out tradition out the window within this context.
Meaningful historical element to the claims of the Orthodox Church. It's as bad as when Roman Catholic apologists say that all their dogmas are apostolic when they've dogmatized, for example, the bodily assumption of Mary, which nobody in the first 500 years of the Christian church, there's any evidence whatsoever, believed in. So when you say we're giving you apostolic tradition, and then you do that kind of stuff, you're destroying your own foundation. You're destroying your own credibility. And
Yeah, as I just mentioned, James White simply, he uses tradition whenever it suits him, then he throws out tradition out the window whenever it doesn't suit him. That's all he does.
Put that in the movie, so that makes you a bad, mean Scots person.
Oh, definitely. One of the things I think is important to understand, James, is that a lot of theological liberals within Protestantism are finding the East very attractive because they don't have to defend their liberalism against the conservatives. They simply just dismiss us all as contrary to the ecumenical councils. It's become a smokescreen for a lot of guys.
I mean, it's possible that a theological liberal could convert to Orthodoxy and then become conservative later. But in my experience, a lot of people who are super conservative realize that Protestantism, especially, even James White's, even like a lot of his church is too liberal in their eyes. And so you have people who are extremely conservative in Protestantism who find Orthodoxy more appealing and they become Orthodox. I mean, I was not a theological liberal. I was, as conservative as possible. Because I used to go to Stephen Anderson's church, so you guys know how crazy that guy is. And then, I was also very fond of James White's. I visited his church. And so, I don't understand why Jason Wallace is making the claim that theological liberals find Orthodoxy appealing. I mean, maybe there are some guys who are liberals who become Orthodox. Praise the Lord, okay? Then there's conservative guys who are Protestants and they become Orthodox. Praise the Lord. There's atheists who become Orthodox. There's Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus. they become Orthodox, right? You have multiple people from different backgrounds becoming Orthodox. So I don't know why Jason Wallace is focusing on the theological liberals only.
Guys, they start out liberal Southern Baptist, they go Episcopal, then they go Anglican, then they go Eastern Orthodox. This is where.
Well, for some people, that might be the case, but then you have people who are mostly Baptist their entire lives, like me. Like I was mostly Baptist. I did venture into the Lutheran Church, in the Evangelical Lutheran Church, the more conservative one. And it's because I just liked the church and the pastor, and I was also kind of a Protestant supremacist. For me, as long as you were a Protestant, as long as you were anti-Catholic, anti-Orthodox, you were like an ally and a friend to me and a brother in Christ. That's how I viewed a lot of things. And even when I was a Stephen Anderson fundamental Baptist type, I was still a Protestant supremacist. And I also like when I was switching over to James White, I was still like this Protestant supremacist in a way. And I know I totally just made up that term, Protestant supremacist, but that's how it was. For me, as long as you were a Protestant of some sort, and of course, as long as you were not a liberal Protestant, like progressive, of course, right? But as long as you're just a normal Protestant, non-denominational, Pentecostal, Presbyterian, Baptist, Southern Baptist, Evangelical Baptist, Free Will Baptist, it didn't matter. At the end of the day, as long as you believed in Jesus, you were saved and you're a fellow Protestant. And so, that's how I was. But still, most of my background is still just mostly Baptist. So that's why I had a temporary Lutheran phase. And even on my doc tags, I actually can't find them now. But when I first joined the military, on my doc tags, for my religion, it said Lutheran, right? Because I thought, hey, I'll identify as Lutheran, and in the end, I'm still Protestant. Doesn't matter which denomination I pick, right? And of course, and then when I became Baptist, of course, when I was identifying as Lutheran, there were some things I still did not understand. I was wondering, why do Lutherans baptize babies? It's kind of, something I did not really agree with. Then, I found Stephen Anderson, because I thought he's more on fire and more, tougher. And so, I switched over back to that, and I became like a Baptist again, but fundamental Baptist. Then the KGVO stuff started to get boring, and then James White became more appealing because he's still a Baptist, but he's still very intellectual. He's still scholarly, and if you listen to a Reformed Baptist, you have this you have this balance of low church Protestantism combined with some high church Protestantism, and just this mix, right? And so you think you can have this balance, but eventually I don't know, for me, eventually I just kind of realized even this is just not enough, right? And so then my friend and I, we had this debate with each other, and of course he got me to realize that Orthodoxy is the true church. And so that's my background. I was just mostly a Baptist. So Jason Wallace is saying, oh, people start off liberal Southern Baptists. Why does he use the term liberal Southern Baptists? What if they're conservative Southern Baptists, and then they become Anglican and Episcopalian, and then they become Orthodox? And if that's a person's journey to Orthodoxy, praise God. We have priests who in the West who say, hey, don't necessarily hate your previous denomination. Be thankful for them, because they're what led you to Orthodoxy. They're what led you to the Orthodox faith. So in a way, my passion, for Christianity is what kept me from falling away. And it was basically a lot of the stuff, a lot of this Bible knowledge, this passion and love for the Bible, is what helped me keep the faith in Christianity. And then eventually, as I started to research about Orthodoxy more and talk to more Orthodox people, that's when, eventually just learned the truth, right? So every Orthodox person has a different journey in their past, and we're talking about converts here. Of course, you have people who were baptized since they were babies, and like that. That's all they know. Praise the Lord too. Praise God for that. They were Orthodox since they were a baby. That's wonderful. But then you have people who have different backgrounds, and of course, if someone went through like 5 different denominations in Protestantism, I'm sorry, if they were 5 different denominations in Protestantism and then they eventually become Orthodox, okay, so what? That was their journey to become Orthodox. And nothing wrong with that. But and why does Jason Wallace keep using the word liberal? Is he saying that only like people who are liberal in their ideas, they're the ones who switch to different denominations? No. First of all, if someone switches to Anglican, it's because they're looking for some kind of veneration, some kind of reverence for God, some kind of respect for the church, and they look around at their fellow Protestants, at their low church Protestants, and they're thinking, oh no, this is not enough. I need something, more conservative, right? So of course Anglicans are not conservative, but when you go in there, there's some kind of awe, some grandeur, some sort of holiness of some sort, right? Some sort of respect for church tradition, right? And then from there, people realize, okay, yeah, this is too liberal for me too. Then you have Orthodoxy. That's where they land, and they have Orthodoxy. So people have different journeys. So there's nothing wrong if you had multiple backgrounds in the past. Because right now, if you're Orthodox, praise the Lord that you're Orthodox right now, and there's nothing wrong with having multiple denominations in your past. Me, I just mostly Baptist, that temporary Lutheran phase, back to Baptist again, and that's it, right? And then I became Orthodox, of course. And of course, Jay Dyer, he originally, he was a Baptist, and I believe he was Anglican, then he became a Roman Catholic, and then he became Orthodox. That was his journey. Praise the Lord for that. So, there's nothing wrong with having this type of past, because God led you to Orthodoxy through that.
A lot of attacks, especially on the doctrines of grace. Did you catch that? Things started acting up.
I'm sorry?
Did you catch that? My phone started doing strange things.
Yeah, go ahead and repeat it real quick.
Anyway, a lot of the guys that are, not all of them, of course, but many of the guys. Can you hear me?
It got you back.
It's self-muting.
Rich is sitting there going, my hands are nowhere near the controls. I'm doing nothing. But you were saying that a lot of these guys, that is the path they seem to take, a little bit of a step at a time until they get to Eastern Orthodoxy or Roman Catholicism, one of the two. But then you've got people who go between those two as well. So,
but I think.
By the way, a very good friend of mine, he was Roman Catholic his entire life, and then he just became Orthodox like a couple of years ago.
I think that theological liberalism is going to be attacking us far more from that direction in the future, and far more challenges on the doctrines of grace, because it's inherently anti-Calvinistic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it definitely
makes really good camouflage for anti-Calvinists.
So are you saying that you're expecting Leighton Flowers to be...
So according to him, if you're anti-Calvinist, then you have theological liberalism? That's not really an argument for anything. Okay? There are so many Protestants who are extremely conservative, and they're not Calvinists. So is this what he's trying to say? That if you're not a Calvinist, you have theological liberalism? Okay, and if you're a Calvinist, why does it matter? Because this entire me making this response video was predestined by God. And then of course, if you are truly a Calvinist, if you believe in in all the tenets of Calvinism, then you basically believe that God predestined some people to go to hell, some people to go to heaven ahead of time. And so it doesn't matter what you do at this point, because you may or may not go to heaven, because God could be like, yeah, thanks for all the good work you do, but guess what? I'm going to send you to hell. So that's literally Calvinism right there.
Become Eastern Orthodox? Is that what you're actually predicting?
I'm not a prophet or the son of a prophet, but
I'm looking at the thing here. We're up to this says 15,000 because as long as Leighton said it, in Houston. So if people watch this and they want more information about, for example, the early councils and stuff, are you going to send them? What are you going to direct them to? You're going to direct them to Schaff?
It's its own.
They were, and trying to make them fit into our modern categories is something I've been warning about for a long, long time. Well, thank you for all the time that you put into creating The Failure of Eastern Orthodoxy. It's on YouTube. Have you posted it anywhere else? My understanding has always been that Eastern Orthodoxy is basically the traditional position of the 7th and 8th centuries fossilized. It has been, they mentioned, that couldn't have been an ecumenical council tweeted out the video, and immediately people started coming down on me. Thank you very much for that, by the way.
I also had Eastern Orthodox tell me that there was nothing wrong with what he said. Someone dies in battle, that in fulfilling their duty, they are committing they're doing a work of sacrifice, and that there is assurance that if they die in sacrifice, their sins will be washed away.
Yeah, that's not the first time that's been offered to folks. I seem to recall the popes doing that during the Crusades, plenary indulgences to, as long as you were wearing the sign of the cross, then there you go. You have forgiveness of sins and things like that. And so that's the same thing. But that's, in that context, it would be Eastern Orthodox battling Eastern Orthodox. It's an internal conflict as far as that's concerned.
Yes, very much. And Bartholomew's trying to aid the splitting off of the Ukrainian church from the Russian Patriarch, and that's in the background as well.
So basically, right here, they're trying to attack Patriarch Kirill's quote about Russian soldiers defending the Orthodox Church, and so Patriarch Kirill's quote, his words have merit, because since 2014, so I'm not going to go into the whole Ukraine bombing its own citizens for 8 years in a row, but from 2014 to 2022, 2015, 2016, the Ukrainian government. 2016, the Ukrainian government was unofficially kind of persecuting the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate, the legitimate Ukrainian Orthodox Church, not the unrecognized Kiev Patriarchate, which is not recognized by any Orthodox jurisdiction. And already in 2015, they would be attacking churches in the Donbass region because Ukraine was in a civil war in the Donbass from 2014 until 2022, and so in that region, churches were being attacked. And when I say in that region, in areas controlled by the Ukrainian military, you would have the Azov battalion, you would have all these other battalions. They would just walk into the churches and they'll kick out the priests and the parishioners, a bunch of old men and women. Think about this, right? And then they'll burn the church down, and priests who cannot carry weapons, they're forced to get out of the building, and and stuff like that would happen, and the Ukrainian government would just let it slide. Then in 2016, against the Ukrainian constitution, where Ukraine is supposed to be a secular government, right? All of a sudden, the Ukrainian government, kind of legitimizes for some reason the Kiev Patriarchate, which is not recognized by anybody. And then Bartholomew, as Jason Wallace mentioned, is trying to kind of, separate the Ukrainian church from the Moscow Patriarchate. But here's the thing. The Ukrainian Orthodox Church already kind of had their own split many years before 2016, before 2014. Back in the 90s already, there was this kind of split where you had the Kiev Patriarchate, which is not the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, it's the Moscow Patriarchate. That's the legitimate Ukrainian Orthodox Church. And for 8 years in a row, this persecution of the Orthodox Church was happening in Ukraine. And after the Kiev Patriarchate became kind of recognized by Bartholomew, who is, by the way, not the Pope of Orthodoxy, for some reason, all of a sudden, more and more churches in Ukraine of the Moscow Patriarchate face more and more persecution. Now, still not on paper, it was not like legitimized, but it became more common, and no longer just in the Donbass. It became common in northern Ukraine, southern Ukraine, western Ukraine, a lot of persecution in western Ukraine. And so these persecutions were happening, more and more ever since 2016, 2017. And then around 2022, you have the invasion of the Russian military into Ukraine. And one of the reasons was to protect the people in the Donbass region. And of course, I'm not going to go into the whole geopolitical situation right now, but by that point, the news of the Ukrainian government kind of unofficially persecuting and seizing temples, kicking out priests, kicking parishioners out of the church, and just handing it over to the Kiev Patriarchate or to the UGCC, which is not even Orthodox. And so this was happening already more and more. That this became super common, especially in Western Ukraine, Northern Ukraine, Southern Ukraine, but mostly Western Ukraine. And a lot of this was becoming more and more common. And so when the Russian military, when they went in, right, they're protecting the Orthodox churches. By the way, the Russian government itself, just like Ukraine, is secular. It is a secular government. And Patriarch Kirill simply expressed his support, saying, hey, basically the Orthodox people are being persecuted in Ukraine. And so basically he was how should I say this? He was basically not quoting, but kind of paraphrasing the verse from John 15:13. Greater love had no man than that a man laid down his life for his friends. Okay? So Patriarch Kirill was implying this verse, this idea that the Orthodox soldiers, not the Orthodox soldiers, sorry, I misspoke right there, but the Russian soldiers, who were just, defending the Orthodox, are basically risking their lives to protect the innocents, to protect the innocent Orthodox people. Because the persecution was happening for 8 years in a row. 8 years in a row of violent persecution was happening in Ukraine. So I'm not even talking about the 8 years. Here in America, you have, let's say, for example, Pastor Bob's church, is being attacked, and a bunch of people walk in. They kick out everyone that goes to Pastor Bob's church. They kick out Pastor Bob, and they replace him with Pastor Bill. And the people who follow Pastor Bill, they take over the whole church building. And here's the thing, and the government does not do anything. The government does not step in to protect Pastor Bob. The government does not jump in to protect Pastor Bob's parishioners. They just kind of let it slide. That's persecution right there, right? Basically, that's persecution. And so this stuff was happening to the Ukrainian Orthodox Church for 8 years in a row. And then, of course, The violence escalated in December of 2022, January 2023, and in February of this year, and in March, and to this very day, the persecution has just been ramped up. And for example, like recently in December and January, the Kiev Pechersk Lavra, like the great monastery that's been under the Ukrainian Orthodox Church jurisdiction, is being seized, is being stolen. The process of seizing it started in December and January, and that's where more and more Christians were outside saying, "Stop! Please don't touch it! Don't touch this holy site!" And they're being ignored. They're being pushed back. They're being forced. Old women were being spat on and attacked by these tough young people, young Ukrainian patriots. Right? These young Ukrainian patriots were attacking a bunch of old women who were trying to be loyal to their church, trying to go to the monastery to kind of show their support. Think about this, right? Old women who are 80 years old, 90 years old, walking down to church to worship God, and you have these young patriots spitting on them, attacking them. So tough, total patriots, right? And so, therefore, Patriarch Kirill's words about soldiers laying their lives to protect the Orthodox in Ukraine, they're valid. They are justified. They are justified 100%. So screw you, Jason Wallace, and screw you, James White, for not understanding the complexity of what's going on over there. No, like basically you have no excuse. You guys are supposed to be scholars. You guys are supposed to be smarter than me. You guys are supposed to have read more books than I have. And you guys don't know this basic knowledge. You guys don't know the quotes from John 15:13. Greater love has no one than this, that someone lays down his life for his friends. Like, you guys don't know this. So I have a question for you. Like, shouldn't Protestants, defend other Protestants in case there's some violent persecution? Wouldn't you guys stand up for that? So, by the way, when the war happened between Russia and Ukraine, there were a few Orthodox churches here in America that were vandalized. Jason Wallace, James White, you guys were silent about that. But Patriarch Kirill is bad for saying that people who are defending the Orthodox, basically they're sacrificing themselves, for a good cause. Patriarch Kirill was right. Patriarch Kirill did not say anything wrong. And just because Patriarch Kirill said something does not make the Orthodox Church in Russia the state church. There is no official state church in Russia. Russia is a secular government. But Patriarch Kirill said, this is what's going on. The Orthodox in Ukraine are being persecuted. And and there's soldiers out there fighting a mission. Obviously they're fighting for other geopolitical missions, for other geopolitical strategies. But at the same time, with these geopolitical missions that they're doing over there in Ukraine, they're also protecting the innocent Orthodox people. But Jason Wallace, James White, they don't know this stuff. They're supposed to be scholarly. They're supposed to be smart. But they don't know basic stuff like this. Okay, that's my rant. So, anyways, Jason Wallace did not prove anything. By the way, if you want to see a response to Jason Wallace, let's see right here. Okay. Oh, look, showing me live. Okay. Okay, yeah. Father John Whiteford. So I was right. And Craig Trulia. They responded to Jason Wallace. This is the Jason Wallace video right here, the failure of Eastern Orthodoxy, and Orthodox Christian Theology. That's the channel that has the response video. So I recommend you guys check it out and watch for yourselves. Me, I was focused more on James White because, I used to be a follower of his, and so, but then I noticed that he always talks about Orthodoxy, but he never I've never seen him ever debate any Orthodox theologian, any Orthodox blogger. Like, I have not seen that. And Jeff Durbin, like, I remember Jeff Durbin posted something out of context on his Facebook page, and we Orthodox, like, we attacked that the comment section on Jeff Durbin's Facebook, saying, dude, you're totally wrong, you're totally misquoting Orthodoxy. And so then Jeff Durbin blocked all the comments, and then for some reason Jeff Durbin and James White just don't ever want to debate Jay Dyer for some reason. And Jay Dyer has said before that they try to set up some kind of debate, but they'd always, make some kind of excuse as to why they're busy, and then Jay Dyer just gave up. But but James White, like, he's constantly talking about Orthodoxy, and for some reason, like, the more he talks about Orthodoxy, the more people will want to leave him and say, you know what, James, I think Orthodoxy is more appealing than you. So, like, so this whole video is just my 2 cents, I saw this video yesterday, and I was just thinking, okay, yeah, like, I gotta say something, I gotta put in my 2 cents, my opinion into this whole thing. And yeah, so Jason Wallace did not prove the failure of Orthodoxy. He failed at proving that. And James White has failed in doing so as well, because James White's, for some reason, he's just making this claim that Orthodoxy in the East and Orthodoxy in the West is different. And I think he's going to say it later on right here.
It's an internal conflict as far as that's concerned. My understanding has always been that Eastern Orthodoxy is basically the traditional position of the 7th and 8th centuries fossilized. It has been, but that the traditional position that has been formalized, fossilized, turned to stone, is that of the 7th, that Francis does not believe what his predecessors believed. He's that Francis of the forensic you get over here in the West, Orthodoxy in its native lands, in its best forms. So not just the nominal form. Really be able to figure out where in the world the guy is coming from. Let that one slide. Yeah, well, whenever everybody brings up Jay Dyer, I'm sort of like, well, which religion is he a part of today? Because he's been everywhere, and that may be something that will happen in the future. But I'll just be honest with you, I sort of doubt that most Orthodox in Ukraine would really be able to figure out where in the world the guy is coming from. He's a good example, in my opinion, of what I was talking about earlier, and that is once you get over here in the West, Orthodoxy in its native land.
Okay, yeah, so he's just trying to say that, like, Orthodoxy in the West and Orthodoxy in the East is somehow different. And that's baloney. Okay, like, it doesn't matter what you convert to, like Serbian Orthodox, Bulgarian Orthodox, or OCA. Like, OCA stands for Orthodox Church in America, which was supposed to be, the American Orthodox Church, but for some reason, that was a whole issue. Like, a bunch of jurisdictions in America did not want to unite under the OCA's umbrella, and I kind of wish they did. We would probably have a lot more conservative priests in the OCA, but unfortunately, like, the OCA kind of, it's like 50-50 there. So, but anyways, but according to James White, like, for some reason, Orthodoxy is different in the East than in the West, because Jay Dyer, he's so intellectual, and the Eastern Orthodox will not be able to understand him, like the ones from Ukraine. Are you serious, dude? Like, seriously, like, I used to watch, like, Ukrainian Orthodox bloggers talk about other Orthodox stuff. I watched Ukrainian Orthodox priests. I watched Ukrainian Orthodox psychologists, right? Basically they have a lot of similar things that Jay Dyer presents. Jay Dyer does his own presentations in his own style because he's an individual. He is Jay Dyer. But then you have individual priests, individual Orthodox laymen in Ukraine who have their own style of dissecting stuff, making their own YouTube videos. So, I don't know, why James White is trying to kind of differentiate Orthodoxy from the West, the East. It's the same everywhere. The Orthodox Church is the same. It doesn't matter whether you're Orthodox Church in America or in Germany or in France or in Greece. The theology is the same. It's the same Orthodox Church. So James White, he himself does not really know the answer to this. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just spouting a bunch of nonsense, and he's leading his audience astray, and he's being deceptive. I say this is being very deceptive by claiming that the Western Orthodoxy and Eastern Orthodoxy is the same, is not the same. And no, it's the same. It is totally the same. It's not different. You can't say, oh, they're not the same. No, they are the same. It's the same. It's the same theology. So if you convert to a Russian Orthodox church here in America, it's the same church as in Russia. If you're converted to Serbian Orthodox Church here in Serbia, it's the same church in Serbia, and it doesn't matter which jurisdiction anyway. You're still Orthodox. We're one big Orthodox church. It doesn't matter whether it's Greek, Bulgarian, Romanian. We are the Orthodox Church. The Polish Orthodox Church, right? Basically, we're one Orthodox church. And James White, he's trying to, I guess, just confuse his audience and be like, oh, it's different. It's not different. It's the same. Okay, guys. So click the like button, share the video, support the channel. Go to patreon.com/altmonarchist. Support me on Teespring. Buy some merch. The links are in the description. And I'm getting a little tired right now, so yeah, I gotta take a break. Getting tired of talking.